Hello, welcome to this video. So, in this lesson or discussion, we will be talking about the different types and classifications of research. Okay, so number one, we can actually come up with the different types according to purpose. So, what is the purpose of your research? Is it to make a prediction? So, it is predictive or prognostic research, or is it a directive? So, if it is predictive or prognostic research, this type of research proposes to give the result from one specific educational practice or pattern, and it seeks to establish a close statistical connection between the characteristics of the subjects and predictions of educational outcome. For a directive research, it determines what should be done based on the findings to remedy an unsatisfactory conditions if there is any. And aside from that, we also have what we call as illuminative research. So this is concerned with the interaction of the components of the variables being investigated. So interaction between components of educational systems and subjects, characteristics, and its educational consequence. Okay, next, we also have what we call as basic or pure research and applied research. So this type of research is classified under according to goal. So in this type of research, this is done particularly for basic. It is done for the development of theories and principles. So it is conducted for the intellectual pleasure or learning. Much of this kind is found in the psychology and sociology. For applied research, it is the application of the results of pure search. So it is testing the efficacy of the theories and principles. Of course, between the two, it is more difficult to conduct applied research. So you really need to test the theories or the principle. Unlike for basic or pure research, you just need to develop or sometimes for basic research, you just need to come up with a simple research. This is just a basic research. For applied, of course, there is an application that is involved, and you are testing that theories and principles. Now, according to the level of investigation, we also have what we call as exploratory, descriptive, and experimental. So it is exploratory if the study aims to come up with explorations of variables pertinent to a specific situation. So it is descriptive simply, of course, because you just want to describe your variables. And it is experimental if your study has something to do with a cause and effect problems. Okay, so let us move according to type of analysis. So we also have what we call as analytical and holistic. So for analytical, we attempt to identify and isolate the component of research situation, while it is called holistic if we begin with the total situation, focusing attention on the system first and then on internal relationship. So of course, from its word alone, it is because it is holistic. For analytical, it sounds of course that we are like dealing with a quantitative numbers because it is analytical, but for analytical type of analysis, it does not mean that this just involve a quantitative. We can also have a qualitative analysis, as long as, of course, we are attempting to identify and isolate components of research situations. According to choice of answers, we have evaluative and developmental. For evaluative, all possible courses of actions are specified and identified, and the research tries to find the most advantageous. For developmental, the focus is finding or developing a more suitable instrument or process that has been available. So for researches, that type of researches like we aim to evaluate, we aim to assess a particular, for example, program, it is considered evaluative. So because of course with our objective to evaluate, it is developmental because we wanted to develop something. And according to statistical content, it is quantitative if one, of course, if it involves numerical data that needs to be analyzed later, so it can be in terms of comparison, in terms also of cause and effect relationships, or other problems that can be answered using inferential statistics. So generally, if we wanted to later to compute for the mean, we wanted to compute for the standard deviations, we wanted to interpret our values based according to the obtained values or scores. These are all, of course, under quantitative. While for qualitative, um, our data can be obtained using, it can be observations, it can be obtained through documents review, it can be obtained through interviews, and all other methods that can generate a qualitative data. So in this study, so we have actually examples like ethnographic or anthropological studies. So we of course do not use a quantitative analysis for that. So at all but bank so much on primary, secondary, and even tertiary sources of information. So with that, you can consider your data uh, that can be obtained from interview, from document scanning, and others. And according to time element, so it can be historical. So we want to know or we want to describe what was, descriptive to describe what is, and experimental to describe what will be. So as you can see here for the time element, if we wanted to learn or to discuss something about history, of course, that is past, emphasized by the word was. Descriptive is to describe, of course, what is in the present, and experimental. So you want, of course, to know maybe effectiveness of a particular intervention, and you will be able to know that once you conduct the experiment. Okay, so we also have what we call as researchers classified according to area of expertise. So researchers in these domains include, but is not limited to the following. So it can be a sociological research, psychological research, physical research, chemical, nursing, business, economics. So it has uh, something to do with the area of your expertise or specializations, the area that you want to work on. But it does not mean that if your study falls within the area according to expertise, you cannot classify anymore under the area according to purpose or according to time element. Of course, you can still do that as long as your research possess all of this. So the commonly the common are descriptive, experimental. So those are the common ones. Okay, thank you for listening.